Even though racing games have existed since the 1970s, it took until the 90s for rally racing in video game form to pop up, including Big Run based off the Dakar, Carlos Sainz World Rally Championship, and World Rally. These two used an isometric view, and Super Drift Out on the Super Famicom used an overhead view. But the one that popularized the genre was Sega Rally Championship, and Codemasters' biggest influence using that as its starting point for the driving mechanics. They loved how it was easy to pick up and play, but to reach the end you need to know how to handle the car. Developers loved how cars reacted to different terrains and conditions like tarmac and gravel, wet weather, and being set at night all that made the difference control-wise. They were also a fan of Screamer Rally developed by Milestone, fun fact, and Wave Race 64. Like Sega Rally, there was more to it than just braking, accelerating, and handling the jet ski. You had to use the weight of the rider and the waves and use the momentum properly to be more nimble through those buoys. Before Codemasters were exclusively a racing game developer, part of Electronic Arts, mostly notable for F1, Grid, and Dirt. It was a team with only 50 staff where it was their first job and made games of multiple genres, mostly sports sims, racing, and platformers, even the Game Genie for the NES. But the first racing game part of what we know now as the Grid franchise was Touring Car Championship, released in 1997 before Gran Turismo, so this was briefly the yardstick for simulation racing on consoles. Codemasters wanted to carry that simulation idea into the rally racing scene. Where they wanted to differ from other rally titles coming in was recreating more closely to what the motorsport is in real life. Sega Rally kept it simple because it was an arcade machine that motivated players to keep putting coins in to keep playing. The V-Rally titles had you racing other rally cars at the same time around a circuit with all the different nations, terrains, and weather you'd expect in the motorsport, and Gran Turismo would eventually use circuits with one-on-one races. Codemasters were tempted to add an arcade mode with multiple opponents on track at once, eventually doing so with the follow-up 2.0, but back then they cared more about creating something closer to real life, with stages setting themselves with one car only, going from point A to B. In the office there were impromptu sessions of developers trying to beat each other's times on the stages, so the hook was there, and they bought into the idea, motivating the team to put extra focus on the driving mechanics, being more authentic in other areas. Side note, there is a split-screen multiplayer option that lets you compete against each other one-on-one. Rumor has it that the Marlboro truck, which sponsored Mitsubishi and Ferrari in the late 90s, used a truck that would pull over at WRC and F1 events to promote their product. And the hospitality suite included a PlayStation with lots of racing games, including Colin McRae Rally. Kind of ironic considering the tobacco ban on video games. Anyway, there was a rumor that the person that posted the fastest time on most of these stages in CMR was named M. Schumacher. If true, it shows how popular this game was even with the elite drivers. Colin McRae Rally was released on the PlayStation and PC in 1998 and North America in 2000. I only briefly played it as a kid because I put a lot more time into V-Rally 2 on the PS1. I remember the handling and drifting feeling so smooth, and I almost never used the brakes, which, man, I didn't get that far through the driving school or championship. I repurchased the game a couple of decades later after finding it on Facebook Marketplace along with its sequel, both $5 each, hoping to review them in the future. And like most games I buy with that intent, they got left on the shelf for years because I got caught up with one game, then the next one, and the next one. And it took Patreon to tell me, get off your ass and review this game now, being the most voted suggestion on that page. Thank you, Honza135, who always seems to pick a title that always gets the most votes. A racing game will always do that. If you want your game suggestion to be reviewed, then you can support this channel on Patreon.
The aim of your first task is to get a feel for the car. I'll ask you simply to accelerate from a standing start and then bring the car to a halt in a controlled manner. Points will be given for stopping as close to the line as possible.
Like Formula 1, the late 90s were a glorious period for the World Rally Championship. Obviously not every single rally and driver from the 98 WRC season is included, but you can only put so much on a CD. It includes rally cars that have appeared in countless racing games I grew up with as a kid. Subaru Impreza WRX, Ford Escort, Toyota Corolla, and Mitsubishi Lancer Evo 4. And even though I'm not the biggest rally aficionado in the world, there are a few names even I recognize, including Richard Burns, Carlos Sainz, Juha Hakkinen, Didier Auriol, and obviously Colin McRae. Though the omission of Tommy Mäkinen, who won 4 championships in a row in the 90s, certainly stands out, unless he didn't allow his likeness for this game, like Jacques Villeneuve technically not appearing in F1 games in the late 90s, or Colin McRae himself not appearing in the WRC titles on the PS2 because he had his own racing franchise. However, while the PAL region release here, all the drivers' names are real, in the North American version, supposedly all the drivers are fictional, apart from Colin McRae. I know WRC wasn't the most popular motorsport in America. In fact, this game wasn't released in the States until 2 years after everywhere else. I wonder if it is just a licensing issue, considering even the Renault Megane from the novice career is omitted too. This was a time when so many racing games of a similar genre were being released every year, competing against each other commercially, so a few minor details like driver names were traded off for the other. Like a lot of athletes, Colin didn't know much about video games until he got involved, using his name, providing tips for the driving school, and understanding the untapped market at that time. But like Tony Hawk and John Madden found out, if you have a good game that has your name on it, you'll get big recognition. For some, when you say Colin McRae, the video game series is the first thing that comes to mind for some players.
Time is all that matters now, but try and remember, it's not your car.
I wish Colin had a little more enthusiasm when recording his dialogue though. What stood out to me the most is how authentic the rally environment feels for a PS1 game back then. You go to the driving school, it's a CRT in an old portable building, and when you drive along these obstacle courses, you have this Skoda rally car that looks the business, you have sponsor billboards and flags that are real-life brands, and again, the cars and drivers were taken from the 98 WRC season, including a few from the 2-liter World Rally Cup. Yes, you can say pixelated background with dirt sprites by today's standards. The opening stages in the UK, the snowy trees and road make me think I'm going blind or looking at a CRT TV on static. But otherwise, this looks decent graphically for a rally game on the PlayStation in 1998. Just compare it to Gran Turismo 2 or any other rally game on the same console. These two were released after Colin McRae Rally.
4 right, 2 left over crest, 5 left. Square right opens. Long 3 left tightens.
The championship mode sets itself in 7 countries all over the world, all on the calendar in the 98 WRC apart from Indonesia, which was cancelled in real life that season due to civil unrest around that time. Why omit it when the work is done? Have more content basically. And every couple rallies conclude with a super special stage around a one-on-one circuit that you'd find in a race of champions. It looks like 2 cars with their own line, but it's actually one long circuit, and winning these unlocks special cars including the Audi Quattro, Lancia Delta Integrale, Ford Escort Mark II, and Ford RS200. So while there isn't exactly a huge amount of bonus content, what you get is worth fighting for. I certainly underestimated the power these monsters had under the hood. I was a little naive to think that every rally on the calendar would be included, even if it meant less stages. But again, there's only so much you can include with the memory you have. And there are enough different countries to have all types of variety in terms of road surface, weather, and time of day, which affect the driving mechanics in more ways than one. So if you're new to this game, the driving school is essential, because learning how these rally rockets control, you need to understand that using the handbrake is just as important as the foot brake. You'll be using those square and circle buttons a lot. Obviously, it's not Richard Burns rally levels of realistic and punishing. You can pick it up and reach a stage without flipping the car upside down. Semi-simulation is the best way to describe the controls, but you do need a good understanding of how rally physics work, more so compared to other rally games on the same console. Even on the PS1, you can see the car suspension at work, and the sound design is excellent. There's only one song the entire game and no music at all during gameplay, which makes it difficult to make this video appear less boring than it actually is. But the engine noises, that turbo jitter when you let go of the accelerator, really sells them as rally cars. The way the stages are designed fit with the countries they sit in, and every stage is different, a different set of corners and obstacles. And because you're driving these stages blind, relying on Ricky Grist to give you the right directions, you spend the whole stage with your whole body frozen in concentration mode, trying to stay on the road and going as fast as possible. Sure, props and landscape were reused, but with a lot of terrain types like gravel, tarmac, snow, sand, dry, wet, fog, nighttime, and road width like racing in Sweden or Corsica, where the roads are very narrow and opponents post more challenging times. The margin for error is low. A little over the edge or hitting a tree can cost you a lot of time. Additionally, if you screw up badly to the point that you'll think it'll cost you the whole rally win, you have to restart back to stage 1 if you want to have another go. Okay, technically you get a chance to save the game every couple of stages, but it is tedious reloading the save profile, loading screens, going back 2 stages potentially. That's what save states are for. Shh. Every 2 stages you have the option to repair your car since damage from a previous stage carries into the next one, and you only have a certain amount of time disguised as currency. The more you damage it, the more time it costs. Thankfully for most of this playthrough I've been efficient for the most part. After a couple of attempts on the first stage, I thought, ooh, this is going to be a long playthrough, but you do get the hang of the way these cars handle. The difficulty comes down to the stage time, so it's all about you on the road, no rubber banding AI that plagued racing games back then, and adjusting your reactions for a completely different road surface when entering another country. But because you never know the times of the opponents until after you cross a checkpoint and driving only knowing what's ahead at the last second, you still have the pressure to drive as quickly as possible non-stop while trying to keep it on the road. And once you reach the finish line with the fastest time, it feels very cathartic.
Hairpin right. Long 5 left. Over finish.
Colin McRae Rally has the right balance of simulation that's easy to understand but hard to master, and because there's no rubber banding in rallies, it's up to you and your skill to win. With over 4 million copies sold across multiple systems, one of the most successful games by Codemasters for a very long time, like a lot of video game franchises when they're good, gave Colin McRae extra recognition beyond the motorsport itself, and turned into a franchise that has lasted over 2 decades even after the tragic passing of Colin in 2007. Rest in peace. It's only until EA, who bought out Codemasters and the WRC license, did they put the handbrake on the franchise. But it all began with this game, and it's definitely the best rally racer on the PS1. I haven't played the follow-up yet. That one could be the best on the PS1, but there's no reason to not play this one. Very enjoyable.
Over crest. Square right. Over finish.
Thanks everyone on Patreon, including Anthony Cossins, Bibbs, Brittleback, Carrington Jones, Cooper Munn, Darcy McIntosh, Dave Dingledore, MSmtrspt, Indie DM, Mike Camilli, Nightkid Gaming, Ruben Pekolk, Sam Sneed, Tickford45, Thomas Rosendale, UZ Racer, and Will Stokes. Big thanks to Honza135 for suggesting this game, making me give it a proper go finally and really enjoying myself, and for everyone watching this review. Happy New Year everyone, Spenny out.